There is only truly one fatal flaw for disc golf manufacturers, and that's when you lose customers' trust. Today it seems to be stemming from the use of AI, and this has undoubtedly burned Gothro in the past, and now it is hitting Discraft hard with almost comical levels of AI art for its Labor Day release, as well as a very lackluster response. So let's break down everything that happened and why fans are even more mad than they were a week ago. Alright, so for some context, with Discraft being the title sponsor this weekend at DGlow, the timing could not be worse for this controversy. But before we get into Discraft, I want to start by saying first real AI controversy in disc golf was Gothro. About 4 months ago, Gothro dropped coverage of a US distance competition. It was pretty hype, but I will say this video came out 7 months late, I believe. Fans found out that it was partially commentated by AI generated voices. People were pretty pissed. Now I will say the words weren't generated by AI, but the voices were, but honestly that just didn't matter. For whatever reason, they felt like they could not get this video out unless it was AI generated. And other people stating their productions have gone massively downhill, poor editing all around on every video. Now later on they did pin a comment stating they'll do an in-house edit as well, but it feels like if you could have done it later, why couldn't you have done it now? It's 7 months later, it didn't matter. And like Dylan says, this is a lame excuse. It is. It is always a lame excuse. There's never a reason that you need AI. And I can't prove this because I couldn't find it when I was looking back on it, but I swear most of their thumbnails looked pretty AI generated too, looking like it had an extremely low effort feel to it. And maybe there's so many valid reasons for this. Maybe this is the team splitting up. There's some people filming on the Pro Tour, I believe. They had to film Gothro Tour events. They had to film skins. And I'm sure they have a bunch of other projects as well. But with that said, excuses didn't matter. Fans were frustrated and it clearly damaged trust. And this is for a brand that I feel was pretty beloved. Like people still will watch skin matches. The distance competition that I'm talking about still has 75,000 views. That is a ton for an event that happened 7 months prior. But it is clear any AI in commentary or creative works just feels derivative, boring, and lazy. And like many people pointed out, the most simple solution could have been just ask. Ask anybody in the community to help and people will gladly step in. So with that, we go to Discraft. So for Discraft's Labor Day drop, they posted the new Labor Day Force. And the designs immediately were clocked as AI.
What the hell were you even thinking?
Extra fingers, blended, warped textures, rosy derivatives, hand looking a little off, and you had a random guy hulking out, which was hilarious, but very much clearly AI. The guy throwing the disc was actually throwing it above the basket, not to the basket. And at least for me, the glitter with the army-style rim was not my cup of tea either, but not important here. What is important is that this could not have been done on a literally worse day than Labor Day, commemorating the hard work of Americans on Labor Day. It all just felt so hilariously bad for Discraft, and especially when you have direct claims that Discraft hires so many hardworking artists for their disc art. This one has clearly missed the mark. So obviously the main question is, who the hell approved these designs and how did it get this far in the design process? With people stating, I didn't actually believe you, it's so unreal. The fact that 5 fingers made it past everyone in the approval process is wild. In the comment that I just had to use my thumbnail because it just feels so right. Just here to note, this is bad and Discraft should feel bad. And like the bottom response here, this is not the only time this has happened. If you recall, literally the exact styling of the Discraft Raptor is a direct copy of the Ford Raptor. So imitation is already on people's minds. So seeing how this is done in such a low effort way is really going to piss off a lot of fans. But to their credit, to some degree, the general manager of Discraft did respond. Some of the standouts were, he said it was potentially AI, hilarious. They have 6 full-time artists as well as 10 to 12 freelance artists, which is dope. I love how much work they're putting on to make unique art. Now, was the follow through pretty bad here? Yes. But I do like that they do have this full-time staff. But then he goes on to state that they're not aware of AI art and they need to look into it. Like they don't fully get how AI art works, but like just spend an hour and you'll figure it out. And you said that you're the GM, you posted this response. I feel like you should have done the work before posting a response, just my thoughts. It goes on to state that he's not here just to make cheap garbage, but if you're going to sell a disc on Labor Day that I'm sure has a pretty high price range, I can actually find the price because I think they took it down, but if it's not entirely made by humans and you sold it for a decent margin, that is bad and you should feel bad. And it just kept coming back to he doesn't really get AI, he needs to look more into it, and I'm just like, you can't say that. You can't say after the fact. You need to be aware of every product that leaves your shelves because customers are actively spending their hardworking money on your product, and if you can't even understand why the artwork exists, then you should not be GM. But again, this is not just the GM, this is Discraft as a whole. The fact that so many people had to vet and approve this is astounding that it got through. He never really said they were wrong and never lets customers appreciate that they were wronged in in a sport that demands trust between brand and customer. So clearly this added just more fuel to the fire. But again, the responses were amazing. Why post this video if you're not even aware yet? Get your facts straight and speak with the artist, then come back to us and be accountable. I'll find replacements. The first thing should be saying, we are sorry for the clear and obvious error to use AI in our artwork. Exactly. But this guy, Scamanda, he absolutely dropped the hammer on this. Sorry, Bob, this was anything but an appropriate response. You released artwork that the entire internet realized within seconds was AI generated, and rather than owning up to the mistake, you feigned offense at the response. It doesn't matter whether you're personally aware of it, or if, as you tried to allude to, a freelancer snuck it in. Discraft released artwork generated by a computer to celebrate hardworking humans, and those computers are trained on artwork widely known to be stolen from artists without compensation. You really need to accept more accountability for your personal lack of oversight's role. So yeah, I feel like obviously this isn't the end or death of Discraft, but it is definitely a big reminder that these companies are smaller than you think, but they also are dumber than you think. There are so many moments where we see like amazing plastic from MVP and we're like, oh my goodness, this is like the peak of disc golf. And then you'll see stuff like this and it's like, okay, disc golf is still relatively small because no major company would do stupid shit like this. And by the end of this response, it reminded me a lot of Dynamic Discs and how their team just didn't really care about the problematic actions of their staff until it was a problem. Pleading ignorance or saying that you just didn't understand is such a pitiful take. And I say all this as someone that truly does love Discraft. It has quickly become one of my top favorite brands. So I feel very freely in saying that all this is very upsetting. And while I'm sure people will jump ship and boycott, I think it probably won't hurt them because at least in market share, Discraft owns a huge percentage of the entire market, sponsoring so many of the top 10 players. So while the effects could be devastating, I think ultimately it'll just be a blip in the radar. But with that said, I do think this brings into question so much of Discraft's art in the past. And stuff like this particular artwork, I'm just like, okay, well, is this AI? I just don't know. And it really brings into question the entirety of their artwork. And since it is Discraft related, I will mention another thing that I did not bring up in my previous video about the Paul Macbeth Foundation, but they also used AI voice in their content.
Have you heard the news? We're pretty excited. The Paul Macbeth Foundation is holding a global event called Throw.
Leaves the viewer feeling like, why the f do I care about your project if you don't even care to put in real effort with real commentary in your content? But in conclusion, it needs to be said, this is the vocal minority. Like every internet drama, it is almost certainly smaller than you think, but that does not mean it will not have a lasting impact. People will obviously still be watching skins matches. They're still going to buy your Lunas and your Buzzes. But if you are a major disc golf brand that is designing anything, a disc, artwork, clothing, bag, whatever it is, there needs to be a real and clear, unique effort put into your product. Fans can sniff out your AI slop in a moment's notice, and it can quickly tarnish your entire sense of authenticity. And so for Discraft, they could have made it right so easily. And they could have republished the entirety of their artwork, showing the true artist that made it, along with some public statement saying they will not use AI in the future, but alas, that is not the current world we live in, and so we're left with a pretty L take from the GM. But with that, as always, I'd love to know what you guys thought about this whole ordeal, and if it was just a big nothing burger, I'd love to know what you guys think, because ultimately, I am just one person. The community decides the outcome. So with that, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Wild Runs, signing out. Peace.
Don't let it go. Chasing a dream.